Boom, bum, ba-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-bum. This is like one of the rarest of the rare here. Actually, this is the first one of these I've ever seen. Da-da-dum, dum, dum. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, dum, da-da-dum. No. This comes to me from a friend of mine that I was talking to at a break. The Northwest Corner Mud Ducks break, actually, specifically. Here a couple weeks ago. This is a messenger, believe it or not. And what makes it so special is its guts. I've got one that's like this, but not like this anymore. I ran one of these in the back of my Suburban for about a year until I built the 48 pill and the 4 pill. Okay. So, but this is not like it. Mine's been heavily modified. This one is still stock, but this one also has got some stuff going on that makes it even more unique than the one that I had with the all green board in it. This is full of 1446s or 455s. It's 2 drive-in 16. It's a pretty rare box. The reason we got to go through it is because it's a shit show on the inside. If you were to look at these 2 wires, how would you know what was what? You'd have no clue. And I'm glad it's got labels on the inside because it has nothing on the outside. Well, it's got antenna scratched in the paint. There's a bunch of open body plugs here. No grommet on this one, so I guess we'll just pay attention. This is our hot lead, right? This is neat. Fully remotable, low, medium, and high. Preamp, of course, AM delay, biased. This thing makes about 2200 watts. At least it should in theory, right? Like I said, it's a shit show on the inside of here. Let's go take a look at this. So it's got ground braid going in between each one of the transistors, which isn't really uncommon, but isn't the way they did things. This is Romex out of a house. This is Romex out of a house. This is not safe by any means. There's a nut that's in here and another one that's over here. We're going to redo the power wires. We're going to redo a lot of the solder work in here. We're going to try to keep this as close to stock as we possibly can keep it, but we're going to make it better. We're going to clean things up. We're going to square things up. We're going to make the solder work in here better. Like if we get in here, turn the gain down a little bit. You can see stuff is just barely soldered in here. And I couldn't in good conscience let this leave here. There's other small problems like this combiner's been burned up. You cannot use wire wound resistors for your balance resistors. It's okay, we'll replace these with 5 waters and that kind of thing. The story goes with this box is that he had it, he hooked it up, he ran it ran for a hot minute and then it quit running. So he sent it back to the company that he bought it from and they did this to it. And then he got it back and he ran it, but he brought it over, had it sent over here so I could check it out. Okay. There's a couple other things going. So this is technically the bottom. This is technically the top. This here. So it's supposed to sit like so. Now mine drove me nuts. I put big high flow fans on it so we could get more air across it because I converted mine into being a straight, or not straight, but it was a 4 drive-in 16. And it was set up to take a striker, and there's just really not enough heat sink, nor is there enough air to really cool things off in that configuration. Mine was 2 2879s driving 16 2879 Toshibas. Now it's 4 2879 Toshibas driving 16 2879 Toshibas. I might sell my amp that I have like this. But it comes with a caveat. Mine, it's, you talk on it for 3 or 4 or 5 keys, and you got to give it a few minutes to kind of recoup, let the heat come out of the box. If you don't recognize that and you try to hammer on it, you're going to end up having a problem. The fans, just by looking at them underneath here, the way they're connected, a little sketchy, to put it in the least, okay? So we're going to modify the fans a little bit. And the idea is cool air comes down, gets forced across the heat sink, it exhausts out the front and the back. Life is good. Modified mine, so it's got a fan on the inside of the case. Mine sits on rubber feet, and its rubber feet sit about that high. And I pressurize the inside of the cabinet so we're getting air on both the top and the bottom. Cool air across the components. Pulls air in. I think it pulls air in from here and exhausts it out here, so air flows through this entire thing. I'll probably get it out before the end of this video. I'll let you guys take a look at it. The fan situation is a little sketch. So all the fans current and everything goes through this remote switch, which is not the way it should be. We're going to add a secondary relay in here to control the fans. The fans pull a couple amps. So you got to think this wire's probably got 22 or 32 gauge wire in it, this remote. It's got to go all the way through the remote lead, up through the fan, or up through the switch, and back. It's a heating issue. Now, the other thing that I can't help but notice is this. Let's zoom in here and let's look at this. This tells me that this center pin is spinning. See how that's wound up like a licorice stick? The center pin of the coax connector is spinning. So we're going to remove these. We're going to put new coax connectors in here, which if you guys have seen the other 4x16 video I did on one of these, it's a little bit of work. I got to take the whole ass end off, which that's fine. That's fine. It's totally good. I'm going to spend probably 5 to 8 hours on this, just getting all the little bugs out of it and making it so it runs forever. So the first thing I did when I got mine is I modified it and did a bunch of stuff to it. I ran it like that for a hot minute, and it bugged me that I was leaving. It would make like 3,200 watts. Well, I modified mine because I wanted to be able to get the full 40. You know, I was leaving literally 1,000 watts sitting on the table. I couldn't have that. So mine has got my transformers in it. I removed this green board completely, stripped it down to the heatsink. We're not going to go that far with this. We're going to clean this up, going to make it run really clean. We're going to hook it up on the spectrum analyzer. We're going to make sure everything looks really good. We're going to set this guy up for the best chance of success that we can possibly get. The way the grounds work on this stock is they have this really tiny, thin phenolic board that they would strap down above the pills, and then they would have a ground lead that came here and another one that came here. It'd have 2 ground wires. That's what was going on here. They summed it all together. 2 ground wires that go through an eyelet that look like this. You'd pinch the wire and solder it, just like this. This is stock, but this shit here is not stock. So we're gonna go kind of back in time. We're gonna probably remove all this partially soldered in here ground braid. We're gonna replace this with like probably 14 gauge going across all the transistors. Solid, by the way. The reason we do solid is because we don't want to use braid. Braid has a tendency to hold heat to the top of the transistor, and it severely limits the life of the transistor. So, yeah. All right, on that note, we're gonna rip the power wire out first, and that's where we're gonna start. The phone's been ringing like a Mad Hatter today. And I've been sitting there looking at this going, I wanna take this apart. So this was held down by some electrical tape and a zip tie. Pardon me, I just had dinner and kind of got the burps going on. This is stupid. This is stupid. I wanted to see what's going on underneath here all day. Oh, Lordy. Oh, Lordy. Oh, Lord, look at that beautifulness. Oh, man. That's pretty, man. That's purty. As some boys in the South say, that's purty. Look at the one tooth on her. That's hot. Oh, my dear God. Oh, my dear God. So that makes me wonder what's going on over here. Just freaking, wow. Oh, man. This came from some shop, and they did this. That's friggin' hot. Okay, so where's the start point for the... Is that it? No. Maybe. Here we go, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Here we go. Oh man, look at the tooth on her. That's hot, man. Holy cow. Oh, that's even worse. Okay. That's great. Oh, that's beautiful. All right, so I'm just going to cut this out. We're going to put new wire in here anyhow, so. That's hot. Oh, that's hot. Wow, that hurt. Ow. My monitor battery just fell off and smacked me in the wrist. Man. Yeah, this it's one of these. That thing's heavy, man. That's full of 18650s. Okay, so we're still tearing this down, and the more I look, the worse this gets. You talk about running with the devil now. All these combiner resistors are smoked, so I'm gonna have to pull all these combiners up and replace the resistors. No big deal. This circuit over here is kind of cool. This is our final stage combiner. This is, we'll say, left bank and right hand bank. We're going to bring them together. Underneath this resistor, which I'll show you here in a few minutes, is a trace, and that's our output inductor. And this is what they came up with for the final capacitance tuning network, an Arco, which will never hold, and a bunch of these little Mylar dipped capacitors. But what really caught my eye is this. And we're looking specifically in this region. You want to talk about running with the devil. Holy smokes. Let's see if we can get this to focus. So now if I was to hook this up and run it, technically, this would be okay. This is a solder blob that has gone from, let's take my plastic sheath ink conductive device here, a pen. It's a solder blob that goes from here over to here. There is a pubic hair worth of space between this wire and the back of the transformer. Back of the transformer's got 12 volts on it, and it's hot. So that's why when I looked inside of here, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. No, this is too nice of an amp for us to be just hooking up and saying, oh, it's good to go. That's why I told the customer. I was like, no, man, I got to rip this all apart. We got to change a bunch of stuff on the inside, make it safe, just to make it minimum safe, right? Like this would fail eventually. This over here, and this would actually fail first. These are the wrong resistors, and this is what caught my eye initially. It's like, okay, I got to change that. Power wire thing, yeah. This here, you got to change, but it's the small stuff that we don't see unless we really slow down and take our peepholes and look at it. Like that there. That is way dangerous. So this whole circuit would short, it would put 12 volts on everything, okay? The 12 volts would backfeed from here. Of course, it's going to go to ground through this output transformer. So it's a race to see how long that, would it hurt the transistors? Probably not. but it's a race to see how long the 12 volts would stay on. If this would short out, and then we'd have another short, but then as soon as that 12 volts gets active, some of it gets dumped down. It's going to go back through this back through this combiner, back through this combiner, eventually find its way back through, short all of this out as well. That it would not turn out well. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to pull all this braid out of here. We're going to lift all that out. We're going to do something different. Probably use solid wire and make it so it tags in between some of these things. That has to be there. We have to provide it ground here in between the circuit. If you'll see, like over here, I call this the fusible link. So this trace here is what I call the fusible link. There's no trace going this direction up here in the circuit. This is our ground tab for the 50 amps worth of current that's going to get applied here, roughly on a peak, by the way, 50 amps. This trace is all that's providing ground. This trace right here is all that's providing ground to this solder tab. Same thing going on here. This is a substantial ground. This is more than adequate, but there's nothing here. So we're relying on the internal circuitry of the transistor to carry the current from here to here and from here to here, which is not good. Then we have a very inadequate ground here that is carrying current from here over to here. This has a little bit more substantial ground on it with this trace and this trace, but it's woefully inadequate. The sequence repeats itself on this bank, and this bank. It's the same nightmare. So for us to actually have smooth operation, Messenger's solution, and has always been their solution, was to ground over the top of these things. But the braid is absolutely not what we want to use. Don't get me wrong, when I was younger and I didn't understand anything, because we all go through that phase where we're learning, I was putting straps over the top of pills like it was crazy, man. I was like, oh look, this makes it do more. No. All we found that this does is it holds heat to the top of the transistors. And the idea is to not let it hold heat. So just a solid piece of 14 gauge wire going across these works wonders. I mean, we might just use some Teflon that I cut. So we'll run a piece of wire, bink, 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 bink. But a Teflon jacket of wire, there's way less surface area to it. But as far as the outside is concerned, we don't have a big wide piece of metal sitting over the top of the transistor to hold heat down. And we got to clean it up. There's a lot of solder work in here I've got to go in and redo. The other thing I want to do is I want to replace these caps. This is notoriously the highest failure point. This is the number one failure point. The second highest failure point is these caps. They get hot, and over time, eventually the capacitor will break down. The insulation that's between the plates inside the capacitors will start to fail from the heating, just from the field current of the transistor trying to couple. We'll make it hot, so we're gonna go to 500 puff metal clads. These are 470s. That extra 30 picofarads worth of capacitance is not going to make a huge difference, but I've got 500 picofarad metal clads that we're going to stick in here, and we'll never have to worry about it again. But there's a lot of solder work in here I want to go in and clean up and just make it right. So, but this, man, I had to put this on video. That's some scary shit. Well, I figured what I'd do is I would start with this 4-pill section. So we went in and we restrapped the pills, cleaned that up. And then I noticed this blob of solder here. And then I noticed this blob of solder. And as I was replacing this resistor, I couldn't help but notice this transformer sitting in here cockeyed. Well, then that made me go, well, what was soldered on here? And I looked over here and I saw this. And I saw this. And I went, huh. I saw this. And I saw this. I saw this little blob of solder. It dawned on me that this section has gotten so hot in its years of use that this came unsoldered. And the solder all ran to the top of the transformer. The same thing that happened here because this is where the positive rail hooks up. I was like, what the frig, right? So then, okay, what's the front side look like? It's not too bad. This thing has been getting so hot from the current restriction and how it's been operated that parts are starting to come unsoldered from the board. It's like, what the Look, before I went any further, I told myself, hey, I need to stop, I need to document this. This resistor here is fried. I mean, it's straight up just burnt. So that's the reason we're replacing it. Yeah, just had to catch this on camera, bring you guys along with the saga as we're going. So none of these others look like they've come completely unsoldered, not any of these. So now I'll sneak a soldering iron down in here, I'll reheat this up, then I'll force the transformer back down, and then we're going to reflow all of these. So right on, right on, right on. All better. So we had a few of the transformers that weren't soldered all the way down. They come apart like right down here. They got too hot. This is all cleaned up. Let me turn the gain up a little bit. It's pretty shiny and reflective underneath these lights now. All cleaned up. Even over here. Now your eyes might be a little blinded by these really super thick pieces of phenolic that we've installed. This is going to be for our power distribution bus. We'll bring our hot wires in, or hot wire. Bring it in through here. We'll probably tag it onto the, well, yeah, I'll tag it onto this board, and then I'll bring another piece of wire over here to feed this section of the box. And then we'll bring our ground wire in. We're going to solder it right here to this trace, this big ass trace. It's got access to that screw and that screw and that screw and that screw and that screw to carry the ground to the heat sink. Much, much, much better. This combiner wasn't even soldered in over here, so this might have been working, but it was just a pubic hair away from dying. So all cleaned up, even gave it a bath. It's all shiny and pretty and clean. All the nasty flux has been removed. All the flicks of solder that were all over everything has been removed. We removed all these capacitors, which I want to test, which I guess I could do right now. Let's slide over here a little bit. And we'll slide the amp up out of the way for a moment. Let me reach around the camera here and I will grab our capacitance meter. It should all read 470 picofarad. This one reads 463, close. $461. $468. $462. $464. $462. So these are all fairly matched. Still was getting hotter than a peanut. I'm surprised these things aren't bad. $464. And believe me when I tell you, out of all the messengers I've worked on, this is like the #1 bad problem right here. These caps. $468. So not too far off. Okay, moving on. Next thing is to do the fan relay. Stand this back up. Stand this back up. I went ahead and I removed the little, if I haven't lost them, these little guys, and replaced them with 2 watt, 100 ohms here in the flyback circuit on the driver's section. So yeah, I see myself installing a capacitance tube in this thing and replacing all this bullshit over here. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. I want to install a relay, which I'll probably stick down in here someplace to run the fans. And we'll tag off the positive lead over here. Make it switched. Man, that looks good. This looks so much better than what it was. All right, so let's do the PL259s and do the output network, and then we're going to do the fans. And we'll put power wires in it, and I think we'll be ready to run. Now I see why there are so many questions being asked of me here recently about the remote for this particular amplifier. Switch is effed off. It looks like it's been replaced a couple times. I can only imagine why. If we can go back in time just a couple segments ago, I think we were having a conversation about the fans. So if I short the switch, amplifier turns on. This is a switchless amp, as you guys can see. Now I've got the preamp on. This light should be coming on too. It is not. Well, enough for tonight. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I've had enough. Okay, got power wires in, installed with grommets. We got 4 gauge coming to here, another piece of 4 gauge coming around to feed the front half of the amplifier. I gotta find me a Palomar. I gotta find me a junk Palomar, and I gotta rip some switches out of it. Till tomorrow, boys and girls. Till tomorrow. So instead of me ripping apart another amplifier to fix this remote, which is a mess, I just went up in the house and came back with my own remote off the same amplifier. Well, I based my amplifier out of one of these amplifier designs. So I didn't change the pin out on the remote control, even though mine doesn't have the low, medium, and high on it anymore. But I always like these remotes. They were really cool. So the preamp on this and the sideband and all that stuff, it still activates everything the same. So it's like, well, I want to get moving on. I want to get this cabinet cleaned up, and if all I got to do is replace a couple switches on that, I don't need to show that on video. So, I mean, it's an incredibly simplistic design on the inside. And it's literally got the color code stamped right on the board. So I'm not going to hold this whole dog and pony show up waiting on a switch that I'll get tomorrow. I've got to get this off the workbench, and I got other stuff I got to get going on. So power wires are in here. It's all ready to rock and roll. First, let's turn the receive up on the radio. We're going to turn the amp on. So the preamp is working, which is good. SSB delay is working, but we're going to start out with the amp on low. Well, here, let's turn the amp off and let's establish some units of measure. I know what they are, I just haven't told you guys, and I feel bad about that. Let me get this screw. It's been bugging me now for a couple days. Okay. There's a couple of loose blobs of solder. All right, so this here is a 1,000 watt slug and peak. 1,000 in average or bird, whatever you want to friggin' call it, don't care. It's not an actual valid form of measurement on AM. And a 5 watt slug in reverse back from the bird 10,000 watt dummy load. So the amplifier is off, and this is us talking through it. And please keep in mind, we're down on 12 volts. Hello, 1, 2. all we're putting into it, about 18 watts or so. Here's our pass-through tune. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Not bad. That's a 5-watt slug in reverse between the amplifier, RF passing through the amplifier into the dummy load. So let's go ahead and let's fire this thing up. We're going to run it on low. So with 18 watts of drive, hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. It makes 800 watts. Now I want to preface this. When everybody hears 2 driving 16, all they hear is the 16 transistor part. This has got 16 1446s in it, okay? So that means that we're going to see roughly 2,200 watts-ish out of this amp. We're going to easily be able to achieve that with the way this thing is running. Believe me when I tell you that. Input tune on this thing is perfect, and I mean, everything is the way it should be now. With these upgraded metal clads, the thing's gonna run way better forever. Okay, so with 18 watts of drive on 12 volts, we're seeing 800 watts. Let's go ahead, flick that to medium. Hello, we're already seeing over 1,000 watts peak. Same amount of drive. Hello. We're darn near hitting the stop peg. So let's go up to the multiplier. Now this thing is reading in a 2,000 watt scale. Keep in mind the 50 between the 40 and the 60 is 1,000 watts. Hello. So we're seeing about 1,100 watts. Go ahead and we'll turn the amp up to high. Hello. We're seeing 1,600 watts. All right. So now, let's add another variable to this situation. Let's take it away from 12 volts. And let's get up here to something normal. Go to 14.7. And let's let the batteries charge and the capacitors charge and it all come up. Take the amp back down to low. We're going to go back to down to the 1,000 watt scale. So amp is now in low. Actually, let's turn the amplifier off and let's re-demonstrate drive. Hello, 1, 2. 28 watts of drive is all that we're going to put in this. That's it. Don't need to do anything more than that. So on low, we were seeing 800 before. Now we're hard on the stop peg. So our 800 watt box, just by bringing the volts up by 2.5 volts, we picked up almost double the power. No, a little bit short of that. Audio. Seeing 14 and some change, 13 and some change on the peak side of things. So let's go to medium. Now we're doing on medium more than what we were doing on high. We're doing 17 and some change. Now on high. Oh, I don't want to get up there. No, let's go the other direction with the tuner. There we go. Audio 1, 2. Now we're running the way we should be. Topped out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We have not messed with the driver whatsoever. We haven't made any adjustments here. All we did was decrease our capacitance a little bit. How does that affect everything on our low, medium, and high scale? Let's take a look. Let's go back to medium. 1, 2. Didn't affect anything. Back to low. 1, 2. Same amount. So, yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mine, when I had it in the stock configuration, with 2879 Toshibas, getting hit with two 2879 Toshibas, I felt like I was having a good day if I saw 3200 watts out of that box. Hence the reason I rebuilt it and did my own thing with it. So I'm going to fuddle around with this a little bit. We're going to get this locked down. I want to show you this too. This is a 5-watt slug here in between the radio and the amp. And this shows us what our input tune is. So let's start out on low. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Let's go to medium. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Let's go to high. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Beautiful. Do not ever run a 100-watt radio into this amplifier. It will not live, and you'll be all sad and broken up. This amp was built for a different time and a different era. Today we all run around with a 100-watt radio standard. And for you guys that don't understand what that means, 20 years ago, otherwise known as back in the day, if we had ourselves a 35-watt Cobra 29, man, we were stroking and a poking. And that's when this amplifier was built for. Same thing with the drive chain's completely different. Today everybody walks around with a 100-watt radio. So we've had to adapt in the amplifier community to drop out the driver section in a lot of different situations. Like this whole portion of the amp would just go away, right? And we get roughly the same results. We're getting maybe 200 watts out of just this section of the amplifier because this is driving the rest of the amp. So, all right, let me give it the final little tune, polish that just for a second, and we'll be right back. Hello, all the way on the stop peg. So now we're going to talk about nuances. We're going to literally get you straight on the meter. We're going to be around 2300 watts, and we're on 14 volts. Hello, see that? That's the best that we're ever going to see for performance out of this box. In this configuration, which is not very efficient, but it is biased, so you can run it on sideband. Okay, I'm going to lock this tube down. I want to reinforce the backside of the tube so it's not, you know, this thing can be picked up and dropped and bounced around a little bit. So, okay, lock this down, and we're going to set this aside, and now we're going to work on the tins. Got to get the fan kit cleaned up, and yeah, I just want to get all the cigarette stain off the case, make it pretty. I'm going to put some labels back here on the back of the amp too. So, okay, we'll return. Do a little before and after, but before I go and sink a ton of money and time into this. Oh. Huh. Fans are broken. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go directly to the case. So I'll come in here, let's see, this would be hot, this would be ground. Nope, negative. Okay. So all I really wanted to test, the rest of this stuff I can fix, the freaking bad wires, bad solder joints, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're fighting here. I can fix. I just want to make sure all the fans worked. So you guys can see they're all kind of grody, scoged. All right, well, give me a few minutes. Let's go wash this out. We're gonna change this wire around. We're gonna fix this choke that's broke off. We're gonna clean this up a little bit, and then we'll get ready to put it back on. So give me just a second. Okay, tuning tube's all locked down. Can't adjust it anymore. Oh, I got one more thing I gotta do. Yeah, let's get over here and get the special fingernail polish provided by my daughter. This helps keep everything in place, and it helps keep all parties involved honest. A little bit of paint. This is an old messenger trick. It's a tattletale, if you know what I mean. One, it keeps the capacitor from being able to rotate because it's going to hang upside down and this thing's going to vibrate. It keeps it from being able to spin and back itself out. And it also lets us know, us the builders, if somebody's got in there with their screwdriver trying to get 5 more watts out of it. You're not going to get any more watts out of this box. It's just not going to happen. I still personally believe that this thing was originally a Toshiba amplifier. Down in my heart of hearts. But it's got 1446s in it, and it runs great. So, okay, a lot of scrubbing and cleaning later. Looks like friggin' new, doesn't it? Telling you, 12 years of doing this on camera, you learn some tricks. The number 1 trick is rubbing alcohol. Number 2 trick is a thing called a tornado. Google it, you'll see what I'm saying. Tornado detailing tool. And then the schmoo you put in it is the main thing. But as I've shown on camera many times, the other main trick is the right window cleaner and a good paintbrush and just scrubbing. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Tornado to blow all the cigarette jizz off. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Tornado to blow all the cigarette jizz off, and then a little bit of rubbing alcohol to take the soap away. We've replaced this solid strand wire here with brand new 16 gauge Teflon. We wired up ourselves a fan relay over here. So when you turn the amp on, you're no longer pulling all the schmoo through the remote switch. Okay? The remote switch triggers this relay and this relay through this 22 gauge piece of wire here. Carries all the schmoo for the fans. The reason we use a piece of 22 gauge going to the outside is as a fusible link. If there's a short, this wire here gets cut or hacked or something, this wire will burn up and protect the rest of the amplifier and keep you from having a fire. So the only thing left to do is to put this onto that. That'll work. Okay, well, shit. Off. Well, let's put the lid on it, and I think we're done for the most part. Short of getting that remote wired up tomorrow, which I don't think anybody's really that overly interested in watching me do. So, let's button this up. Let me dig around. I think I'm going to put some rubber feet up here on the bottom tin. So, yeah. We're back. You guys are going to want to watch all the way to the end of the video. I mean, past the credits and everything, okay? I'm just telling you, those that actually do, you're going to see something different. So, I didn't show this in the previous segment. As we can see, this coax connector has melted, and it's like a knockoff Bakelite of some kind. But we knew the center shaft was spinning. It's the reason that the coax connectors had to get replaced. That and this was hanging on by 2 threads, and this is our output one. This tells me that we've got either a bad connection, obviously here, or that we could have another bad connection at the antenna or some other way that it was getting used when it was originally being used. Right? Just saying, that's the reason this got replaced. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thank you for following along and enjoying this video with me. I take great pride in being able to do these YouTube videos, and I say thank you to my friends down here on the Patreon channel that come and join. They follow along, they get to be involved, they have access to everything that I sell 24 hours before it, or 48 hours before it ever comes out publicly. Yeah. Big shout out to Siglant XS, Bird, Coaxial Dynamics, MechMan. You know, the usuals. It was nice to work on something other than a Texas Star this week. I'm going to go work on another Texas Star now. But, like I said, as thank you, gentlemen. And as far as this amplifier is concerned, this is the end of the video. So, at this note, we're going to roll the credits. Might want to watch the end. I'll see ya. Click, click. So this is my M2000. This is my personal version of the same amp. You'll see that mine actually sits up off the bench and it's held down by these mounting brackets that I built. And it sits lower because I squished the case down. Instead of having it sit edge to edge, like on this one, I have it sitting over the edge. There's some significant modifications that I've done here. This thing's immaculate, inside and out. This is the remote, or the fan lead. This is where the remote goes. It's got oversized connectors. I mean, we're talking 1/aught gauge cable going in. It's got 4 fans on the top. Now on the bottom, originally it had these 4 rubber feet, and this is the way it came when I got it. Now, to help cool the inside, the components on the inside, we have air getting pulled in here and it exhausts out here. So we've got through flow. Let's turn the gain up so you guys can see the holes a little bit better. It's got through flow exhaust. I got a lot of sentimental attachment to this amp. I never, ever, ever, ever thought I would think about selling this. I'm still kind of not, but maybe kind of I am. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'd want like a small fortune for this thing because it is so rare. But let's pop the tin off so you guys can see the inside. You guys ready for this? I personally feel this is one of the smallest, not the smallest, but probably one of the smallest 20 pill amplifiers ever built. This is a true 4 drive-in 16 in the same cabinet. I kept the pill staggering, the transistor staggering, the same as the stock configuration, which would be over here. But I did away with the combiner network and the relay board and utilize this space over here in the back of the cabinet to put the driver's section in. So you can hit this with a derail striker, or, you know, any 120 watt radio you want. This amplifier makes everything of, oh man, I mean, we're talking everything of a, I think it was like 41, 42, 4300 watts peak, like consistently all the time. So, this is my baby. I don't know, if I sold this, it would have to be for an insane, stupid amount of money, and I know nobody out there wants to give me an insane, stupid amount of money for it, so I don't know. Looking back, maybe I should have left it stock, but I didn't. I ended up going this route with it. It's got relay delay on it. The fans are on a, you know, relay, all the same stuff, except it's just been heavily modified. So it's got a brand new copper clad board in it, continuous positive 12 volt bus all the way down the middle. This thing was a nightmare to build. It took 2 weeks to do. Took quite a little bit of time to tune it, because to change the tunes on each one of the sections, I've got to take a bunch of parts out to get down to the capacitors to change and then put it all back together. But the remote here is pinned out the same as the remote for this. That's why they still cross over. So anywho, I just thought I'd throw this in there as a little after reel teaser, and I appreciate everybody watching till the end. On that note, I gotta go. Gentlemen, I'll see you. Click, click.